Congressman John Campbell formerly represented the state of California in the United States House of Representatives for a decade. He did the same in the California State Senate and the California State Legislature, so we blame everything in California on John. But nevertheless, he comes here to apply. He's working it off like penance for his legislating. And he also chaired the subcommittee of the House Financial Services Committee having to do with the Federal Reserve. So he's no dummy when it comes to the Federal Reserve. John Campbell, welcome. It's always good to talk to you. Even on a grim day like today, I want to talk about the Federal Reserve and President Trump's firing of Lisa Cook. I want the people to know the background. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in Trump v. Wilcox that the President of the United States can remove members of the National Labor Relations Board and the Merit Systems Protection Board, regardless of the requirement for cause. But they went out of their way in their opinion to say this doesn't apply to the Federal Reserve. So what do you think? You think this is going to stand?
Well, I think, the question is, can he remove someone for cause? And I think most people believe the answer to that is yes, that he can. So the question here is an allegation of mortgage fraud that has not yet been adjudicated on the basis of this one member of the Federal Reserve, does that qualify as a cause, as a sufficient cause to remove a member of the Federal Reserve? Obviously, Lisa Cook believes no. Trump believes yes. And so that's where it is at the moment. As far as whether the legal aspects of it, you're much more qualified to opine on that than I.
I like to be very humble on cases of first impression. I don't know. Nobody does. It's a case of first impression. I wrote a column tomorrow about the Posse Comitatus Act, since everyone's throwing it around, and nobody knows that it's never been actually adjudicated in any kind of systematic way. So whether or not Donald Trump can do what he wants to do with the National Guard in D.C. and elsewhere will depend upon whether or not the Posse Comitatus Act in any way affects his commander-in-chief authority. But on this, given that they were already backing away from the for cause, I think she's going to end up out of a job. And if she has a remedy, the court will say, sue for your back pay. That's what I think they'll say. Well, will it be bad for the world if that happens?
No, it's actually very good for the world. And, I see all these things. I mean, Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal, all these people apoplectic that somehow this is changing the independence of the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve won't be independent anymore, and this is awful, and this is terrible, and blah, blah, blah. First of all, let's take a step back. Lisa Cook was appointed by Joe Biden to go on the Federal Reserve. She is a DEI appointment. Let's make no bones about that. If you look at her background, yes, she does have a Ph.D. in economics from Berkeley. Now, these days, I might question whether that's genuine economics or not at Berkeley, but she has a PhD in economics from Berkeley. But her when she taught at Michigan, all of her career has been in government or in academia, and it has always been involved with international, primarily Africa, with a lot of focus on economics and the economics of Africa. And so her background, albeit has some economics, there's no private sector experience. Furthermore, she has all of her education and post-education involvement has been international. Well, the Federal Reserve doesn't do international. That's the IMF and other things. The Federal Reserve does domestic monetary policy. So she really has zero background for that. She's a DEI appointment. And the thing about DEI appointments, and I saw this in Congress and other places I've been, if you got your job because of color of your skin or your gender identity or whatever it is, some DEI reason, you believe you have Teflon on you, you believe you're bulletproof, they can't fire you. And to some degree, that's true. I mean, in a lot of states, you can fire a white male heterosexual under 50 years old with impunity. You can fire them because they're a white male heterosexual under 50 years old. But you fire a black female lesbian or something like that, you have to have a gigantic case to do that, or you'll get a wrongful termination suit. So these people act differently. I remember talking to a black member of Congress when I was there once. There was something he and I agreed we should do, but it was the press wasn't going to like it, And I said, look, if you do it, they won't bother you. If I do it, I'll be excoriated. He looked at me and he said, you're right, I'll do it. And so they understand this. And so I think what you see with her with the mortgage fraud, where she reported 2 different properties as her primary residence, is because she's a DEI. I think she figures she's immune to this. Well, guess what? She shouldn't be. She may think she is. The Biden administration may believe she is, but according to the law, she's not. And
what I did not realize, Congressman Campbell, is that the term is 14 years. Now, the Federal Reserve chair is 4 years, but the term of each governor is 14 years. Why?
Yes, I don't know why, honestly, but the one thing is not all the people who make the decision on interest rates that will make the next decision on September 20th are the Open Market Committee, which is a subset of the Federal Reserve larger board. You are not on the Open Market Committee for 14 years. So people rotate on and off the Open Market Committee. So it's not like she would be on there making the interest rate decision for 14 years. She'd be doing that for a shorter time than that. But yes, I know it would be. It's an amazingly long time, and so I think she should be removed. I think she never should have been appointed. I think it's total DEI appointment, not on the basis of qualifications or anything else. She is a political animal. The vast majority of her time, she worked in the Obama administration, and then was appointed by Biden. So she is not a true kind of economist, financial person that is making decisions on the. If you read anything that she's written, she has a lot of her economic decisions are politically charged. In other words, what can we do using the Federal Reserve to help climate change or to help DEI and promote more DEI and stuff like that. So I think she never should have been appointed. But when she was going to be there unless she did something wrong, and it looks like she did something wrong.
Now I want to get your quick reaction to Nvidia earnings. They have come in beating top and bottom line, but Data Revenue Center came in just shy of analyst expectations. They had projected Q3 revenue at $54 billion, plus or minus 2%. It came in at $53.4 billion. What's that tell you, if anything, John Campbell?
Well, the stock's down 2% in after hours, which is not very much. To understand, for those of listeners who don't understand why we're talking about this one company.
Well, I'll tell you, stick around because I don't want to get started. Can you stay for another segment?
Sure.
All right, stay. We'll bring him back after the break because I don't understand why the market cares that much about Nvidia, but John Campbell does, or at least he's about to pretend to, and that's good enough for me. Don't go anywhere, America. And you might even call 1-800-520-1234 if you have any comment on whether or not Federal Reserve board members ought to be removable. And any details on the Minneapolis shooting that come up, I will, of course, bring to you as they are revealed. Nvidia reported results after the bell of $1.05 per share on revenue of $46.7 billion. Analysts anticipated earnings per share of $1.01. There was a beat on revenue of $46.2 billion, so they beat the revenue forecast. So I really don't know why it is down about 2% in after hours. But John Campbell is here, and he knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. John Campbell, what do you think?
Okay, well, first of all, as we said before the break, or as we teased before the break, why do we care about Nvidia? It currently represents 8% of the value of the entire S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's 500 index. So the other 499 stocks represent 92%, but this one represents 8%. There hasn't been a company that had that was that great a percentage of the value of the overall stock market since the 1960s. I think probably either AT&T before they broke it up, or General Motors.
Yeah, I was going to say GM, maybe.
Yeah, before they almost broke it up in the 1960s when it broke itself up. Stopped making money, basically. But not since the 1960s has something like this occurred. And obviously today the economy is much bigger. It's much wider. There are less companies that, in theory, should dominate, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, it is very important. Just to put it this way, if Nvidia stock were to drop in half today, the S&P 500 would go down by 4%. just on that. If
That would
everybody
be
else
like Black Tuesday when I was in the Reagan administration. That was an ugly day.
Yeah, if everybody else was the same, I mean, to put that in a Dow context, that would be what? The Dow would be down like, thousands of points.
Yep.
If that happens. So that's why we watch it, is that it's extremely valuable. Why is it so valuable? Because they make the chips that are going into all the AI, artificial intelligence, around the country and around the world, and they appear to be ahead of everybody else in these chips, and they're getting a lot of money for them. And they're making enormous margins, and that's the reason. So why is it, if it's a beat, is the stock down right now 2.41% in after hours? And we'll really know what the market thinks tomorrow, because most people aren't dealing in after hours. There are a lot of people will chime in the morning. But recently, Nvidia has been beating their estimated earnings by a ton. I mean, they've been coming in way over every time. The fact that this time they didn't come in way over probably means the market's wondering, perhaps this company isn't going to grow 100% a quarter or whatever. I'm making that number up. I don't know what it is, but it's huge, that the growth that this company has had in the last couple of years.
The 3-year return is 1,018%.
Yeah, there you go. So if people think that the next 3 years is only going to be a 200% return, which is pretty damn good, it's still priced right now for what it's been doing, and that sort of thing will continue. And so if the markets believe, and now there will be a conference call they'll have after this with the executives of Nvidia, and oftentimes then that will affect the market price, because they will give their outlook for the next quarter and the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's sort of like listening to Jerome Powell in Montana or Wyoming, wherever they go, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he speaks like an oracle. I think it's the weirdest thing that, his phraseology can send the market spinning. Yeah,
that's unfortunately, that's the way it is nowadays. There's a lot of people like me that believe the market should be priced on fundamentals, silly things like making money, and cash flow,
Profits.
Stuff like that. And profit should be priced on the basis of that. But an awful lot of the market pricing today is based on narratives, and based on which, of course, we see in politics as well, narratives of what's the narrative about what's going to happen next, what's going to grow, what's going to be big, what's going to not be big, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of that gets priced in now, as.
So what do you fundamentally think about the economy right now?
I read so much on this, and it seems to me that it's fine. I mean, there are a lot of doomsayers out there, and there are people who color their economic opinion by their politics. Oh, Trump's in office, therefore everything must be good. Oh, Trump's in office, therefore everything must be bad. I don't do that, because my living standard is based on my getting a return on my investments and not on politics. So I need to make an objective look at things.
To be dispassionate. And
correct.
Well, you're very dispassionate today, Mr. Campbell, even though you're responsible for the train to nowhere. You didn't stop it. You could have stopped it by throwing yourself in front of it, I think, but we'll talk about that next week. Follow him on X at JBT Campbell, JBT Campbell.